Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. I told you guys before, plenty of questions coming in, probably more than I can actually handle. I'm looking at my dedicated inbox now with all the questions on there, so these episodes may be longer, but the one question on everybody's tongue today is, Roman, what's going on with the market? Roman, what did the coronavirus do to the market? Roman, that's on everybody's mind, and everybody's asking about market, what has happened. I will give you a brief market update. And I'm not even wearing a watch today. Can fix that. Can never go wrong with one of these. How about a stainless steel Daytona? Old school one. Get that plastic off. Alrighty then. Now that I got on the watch, let's go back to what did I say? Corona. Roman, what is this doing to the market? What is this doing to the value of the watches? Is this the right time to buy? Blah, 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 blah. I know it's a genuine concern for a lot of you guys out there that have bought your watches and that have been going up in value. And you all of a sudden realize, oh my God, these watches are a great investment. But what have I been telling you this entire time? Watches are not an investment. They're just an expensive toy. Hence the point, all you guys that bought up all the Nautiluses and paid stupid money for them right now, the prices are actually down. Nautiluses were dropping before the coronavirus outbreak because they reached an outrageous price, so they started dropping slowly but surely. A month prior to the breakout of the coronavirus, you saw Nautiluses take about a 20% drop, right? And obviously right now they've dropped even further. Why are they dropping even further? Because now you have dealers that are holding large stocks of these hype pieces, those that only concentrating on selling nothing but hype pieces that paid top dollar for them as they kept going up and kept selling with top dollar. Therefore, some were driving the prices up and at the same time thinking this is an endless thing. And I'm referring to dealers that got into the business in the last 5 to 6 years. And all that they did is buy hype stuff. Nautiluses, stainless steel Royal Oaks, Aquanauts, obviously sports Rolex, as well as Richard Milles, right? And all of a sudden, now that this has stopped, they're panicking. And the reason they're panicking is because they can't afford to hold on to that inventory. And they also seeing that in the future, you're probably most likely going to see another 20 to 30% drop, which would make some guys lose a whole lot of money if they were the ones paying top dollar for these things as they were going up. Because remember, nobody out there bought 5276s for $60,000, held on to them until they reached 100 and started selling them. Bought them for 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, so on and so on and so forth. And so when the market was 100 grand on those watches, people were paying upwards of 90 B2B, right? And this is where you start taking a hit. I sold a 5276 brand spanking new last week for $80,000. It's a hell of a difference from, 110, the new blue dial that you see online still for 110,000, right? It's a hell of a difference. So for those that were paying 85 and 90 for those things just about 2 months ago, they're now in a world of hurt.
I hurt myself today.
Same goes for retail clients, the ones that thought that this isn't going to stop and they were paying top dollars for these stainless steel Nautiluses that seemingly kept going up hourly. Now they're going down hourly. Sports Rolexes, another thing. Now, we do have the news from the factory of Rolex closing down production, and that should help sustain some of the Rolex pricing. But again, nobody out there is paying $18,500 for a Pepsi GMT anymore. You're going to see those come down to earth. They're not going to hit retail prices. You're not going to see that, but you're going to see them come down to the low teens. What else? Richard Milles. Richard Milles is the only one brand that's still holding, and the reason it's holding because there's not a lot of them out there. And Richard Mille himself has controlled the market so tight that you won't see any new merchandise come out in the market until the ones that are out there actually get sold. You're going to see some drops due to the fact that, again, dealers panicking and physically needing money, so they will come off some of the stuff slightly cheaper, but you won't see the same percentage drop in Richard Milles as you saw, let's say, in Nautiluses, because, again, a lot less product out there. There's a lot of Nautiluses and Aquanauts out there, believe me when I tell you. Hot pieces are going to stay hot. Audemars Piguet, right? Royal Oaks are going to come down slightly, and some of the hotter offshores, but they still won't come down tremendously again due to the production numbers and due to the fact that most of the hot stuff was boutique only. And you're not going to see Audemars Piguet boutiques dumping their pieces at below retail, right? So they're still going to be selling at retail. They're still very, very scarce. And at the end of the day, you're not going to see those prices take a dive. What has taken a dive a little bit, the double steel skeleton was trading upwards of 110,000. You're probably going to see that watch come down below 100,000, probably in that 85 to 90 price price range for now. And again, not a lot out there. The beautiful part about that particular watch, to use as an example, is those that actually bought it at list, and I think the retail price originally started at somewhat in the mid 40s, now it's up to 50 or 51. They're going to keep that watch because at 51,000, the end consumer knows he'll never lose, right? Majority of the other stuff, your 15202s, all your blue dial stuff, again, gradually decrease, but it's not going to decrease tremendously. Again, the biggest hit is going to be taken by Patek, followed by, I guess you can say, Rolex, because again, a lot of the sports models have gone through the roof. Again, percentage-wise, not dollar-wise. You're not going to see me say, I told you so, because I've always told you guys I don't have a glass ball. But the one thing I can say that in regards is the fact that watches are not an investment. They're an expensive toy. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down.
And round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud.
And you never know. What's hot today may not be as hot tomorrow. And anything can happen in the world in the likes of the stupid virus that can cause pricing to fluctuate.
But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride.
So what are we doing here at LuxuryBazaar.com? My biggest concern over everybody being quarantined, shut down, is my people, the people at my company. Now, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned to, make a living for myself and support my own family and, God forbid, going out of business. Obviously, that's a concern that's in the back of my mind. But me being an extremely positive person, I got over '08, I'll get over this just the same. It's only a matter of time. The only issue I have is that in '08, I kind of foresaw how long something like this would last. With the coronavirus, is the great unknown of how long until things go back to normal. That makes it a bit worse. But at the same time, going into it with a good economy, at least in the United States, I know the recovery will be that much faster and better. As a consumer, what do? There's sort of that panic mode from retail customers. And let me break them down into a few categories. Let's talk about the flipper. The retail customer flipper, the guy that went out to ADs, was able to get things at retail due to relationships he had in the past, and then he would end up making some money on a lot of these pieces. Believe me when I tell you, 8 out of 10 of these guys, or 9 out of 10 of these guys are now caught with merchandise at retail that they can't resell. And I know this because I'm getting emails on a daily basis from some guys that bought things at retail from boutiques, and all of a sudden they're offering to buy it to me. And when I ask them how much, I said, well, I paid retail. And my response to them right now, well, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be paying retail for this watch right now. I want to get at least 20 off, 25 off, or 30 off, whatever it might be, depending on the watch, right? So the guys that got caught out there, I'm hoping, I don't wish bad on anybody, so I'm hoping that they flipped enough watches prior to that to make up for the losses they're going to take on whatever watches they have in stock right now. So right now, those guys are in panic mode saying, oh, shit, I'm going to lose a bunch of money now. I need to sell this. I need to sell it quickly. What that will do is, again, cause that 20 to 30% drop in the market on some of the hotter stuff that normally you can only get at retail and above. Then there's the consumer that has a large watch collection that he's paid, let's say, reasonable amounts of money for, meaning he purchased these things at reasonable price. Let's say some of these pieces were at a premium, some of these pieces were at a discount. This is a collector that's maybe sitting there on a couple of $100,000 worth of watches, and he's saying to himself, wait a minute, everything is tanking, much like the stocks. Maybe I should sell some of this stuff off, take my licking now, because these things are going to be cheaper down the line. And my collection is going to go from being worth $200,000 to, let's say, $150,000, $160,000. It's a two-choice situation when it comes to something like that. And that is the fact that, yes, no doubt, a lot of the stuff is going to come down in price, and you're going to be able to replace it cheaper at a later time. But that's just like playing the stock market, right? If you sold off Apple stock a month ago, now you can buy it back a heck of a lot cheaper, along with a lot of the other stocks. So you can treat it that way. At the same token, I can tell you can just stay put, because at the end of the day, again, these things are not investments. Keep your watches, enjoy your watches, and eventually, things will even back out, right? And then there's the buyers. Believe it or not, we're selling stuff, and we're selling stuff every single day. In fact, I've been getting more inquiries on purchasing stuff now because of what's going on, because there's a lot of guys out there that are realizing I can take advantage of the fallen market, and I can pick up some deals out there. Here's what I'm going to tell you in that regard. What's happening in the market now, and I think I said this in Paul's video, you now have an opportunity to go out there and get a watch which was seemingly out of reach due to price. And not due to the fact that whether or not you can afford it, but due to the fact that there are a lot of people out there that felt like, well, I really want a Pepsi GMT, but I just don't want to pay $18,000 for it. I think it's out of reach. Well, I really want a 5711 Nautilus, but there's no way in hell am I paying $80,000 for it. Right now, what you have is an opportunity to get out there and buy something that is no longer that out of reach, or no longer that ridiculous of a price, because the prices have come down some. So my goal is to shop around at this point because there's a lot of dealers out there that want to come off this inventory. You won't find as many deals as you think because most dealers out there that have this hot inventory, they still own it at an older price. So unless they're willing to lose and sort of cash out and put the money into something else, that's when you can most likely get a deal. If right now you're in a position to purchase a watch or multiple watches or jewelry or whatever it might be, keep in mind you're now in a buyer's market versus a seller's market. But don't get caught waiting for the market to bottom out because once this whole Corona thing is over, the market will pick back up rather quickly. In fact, a lot quicker than you can find a deal today. So don't try to be a bottom feeder, I guess is the best way to put it. If you have a watch that you've been eyeing for a while, right now is the time to go out and get a deal on it. That sort of concludes my quick recap of the market. If you take anything out of this, the one thing I want you to take out of is the fact of what I've been preaching this entire time. All you guys that disagree with me in the back of your head, every time I said watches are not an investment, it's just an expensive toy. What's going on in the market today is a real live example. Something that's completely out of left field, something that's completely out of control, something that people didn't foresee coming at all of a sudden now has an effect of those investment pieces that you bought. I've told you guys plenty of times, watches are an investment to a guy like myself because this is what I buy and trade on a daily basis. For you guys, it should be just that. It should be an expensive toy, a piece of horology to enjoy on your wrist. So please, please, once again, take this one thing away from this video. Let me jump into some questions. So I'm gonna take one from Kuba Cartes. This is a gentleman not only whose questions I've answered before, but also a gentleman you've seen on my show. He visited me here from Poland a few months back. And he's asking me about Romain Jerome. For those of you that don't know, Romain Jerome filed for bankruptcy a few weeks ago. Do you think there's still a light for the brand and someone will buy them and keep going, or are they just dead already? All the best, Cuba. I liked Romain Jerome. I saw Romain Jerome when they were first starting out. I was in Basel. I think it was 06 or 07. I don't remember exactly. I like the gimmick behind the brand. You know, Titanic DNA watches, Moondust DNA watches. I think they did a tremendous job. Problem is I felt like there was just not enough money behind the brand to begin with. And when the 08 crisis hit, it put them under, and they never really recovered. I don't think anybody in their right mind right now is going to invest into Romain Jerome watches. I think the brand can probably be bought for pennies on a dollar. The problem is I don't know if there's enough marketing out there that can rebrand these watches and take them out of the shadows of the highly discounted pieces that they were over the last 10, 12 years, right? Ever since 08, to make ends meet, they started putting out closeouts. I've owned Romain Jerome watches as cheap as 17 cents on the dollar brand new. What does that tell you? I still have a few pieces left on my website. I think we're selling them at like 70 or 75 off, right? To answer your question, Cuba, unless we go into another really, really hot market in the likes of what we've had, I would say prior to 08, like 06, 07, where the market was just booming like crazy. Unless we go into a market like that, and I might say market, I don't necessarily mean just the watch market, I mean financial markets and economies all across the world, I don't see anybody in their right mind wanting to buy this particular brand. If somebody's forward thinking, they could probably pick up the brand and the rights to the name and everything else right now extremely cheap, along with all the leftover inventory and everything else that they have, and just sort of put it back in the back of the safe and maybe try to revive this brand when things are better. But for the most part, I think they're pretty much dead at this point. Sorry, I know you like the brand, but just giving you my opinion on how it is. Next question comes from KK via email. Hey Roman, great videos, keep up the good work. I have a few questions for you. Why is the major manufacturers seem to forgo using silver as a material for their timepiece aside from Tiffany & Co? Is it due to silver tendency to tarnish? I've talked about this before. One, you answered your own question. Silver does tend to tarnish, and it's not very attractive on a watch for most, although I like when watches tarnish, like the bronzers, right? I like the bronze Panerais and stuff when they actually tarnish. I think it looks pretty cool. But yeah, for the most part, it's that, plus silver doesn't carry that much weight as a precious metal, where people don't get that same feel from silver as they would from a gold watch. Gold screams expensive, where silver screams, oh, it's that cheap precious metal kind of thing. Second question, what are your opinion of Carl Booker watches? How is the market for them? I'm looking at a pre-owned 18-karat rose gold Petravi with a rectangular case and leather straps, so I'm wondering what's a good price to pay would be. All the best. I look forward to seeing more videos. Carl Booker, another great Swiss company from Lucerne, Switzerland. It's a little magical place on earth, especially when you get in towards that late spring, early summer. Smack in the middle of the town, they have a canal on which they have what's called a lover's bridge. And rumor has it, if you cross the bridge with somebody, you are to fall in love. That bridge is like 800 some years old. You have white swans swimming in the canal, and as you're sitting there having probably the best schnitzel in the world, your backdrop is the Swiss Alps. Definitely a magical place on earth. They've been around since 1888. Mostly they were popular throughout Europe, never really made a big debut in the United States until guys like Turnell picked them up, and other dealers followed suit to become an authorized dealer of them. Never really created a big buzz, sort of that quiet company, and therefore the market share wasn't as huge, and therefore the resale value on the watches are not that great. Quality of watchmaking as you would expect from any other switch manufacturer, but again, it's sort of like that brand that's, they're always been there, sort of slow and steady, because they're not as mainstream as Audemars Piguet or let's say Rolex for that matter. The resale value, a lot of this stuff is going to suffer, but that's a plus to you. So when you go and pick up these watches pre-owned, you should be able to pick them up at better than half price. Hope that answers your question. What the fuck? Oh shit. Next question comes from Derek. Hey Roman, new to the channel. I've learned a lot of new information. Thanks, keep up the good work. Maybe calling you soon. My question is about the Milgauss, the ZBlue, black dial, orange markers. I've tried to view all of your videos to see if you mentioned those pieces. I haven't seen it yet. What are your thoughts on these pieces' value, long-term collectability, and resale value? Do you come across those pieces often, and are they hard to get today? I had a ZBlue and had to let it go. Thanks, Derek. If I took Rolex and I broke it down into sort of like most wanted, least wanted in the middle, Milgauss is sort of that middle watch. And the reason it's sort of that middle watch is because it's different from all the other Rolexes. Much like the Air King I discussed, the one with the green dial, right? What's hot from Rolex today? Obviously Daytona, Sky Dwellers, GMTs, Submariners, and so on. In all its different variations, right? After that, you have the Yacht Masters, right? Some of the Datejust 2s, along with the Milgauss that sort of falls in the middle. When the first Milgauss green came out, that's when people kind of went ape shit. The watch went through the roof and then it came back down. And this happens with every new Rolex as it comes down. But it's the proven models year in, year out that tend to trade over list, which is number one. First and foremost, Daytona has always traded over list. And the second closest is going to be the Sky Dweller. The Sky Dweller is the one that surprised me. I thought it was going to be sort of the same thing, where it was really, really high out of the gate and then slowly going to come down. It's holding because it's a popular watch and it's a hell of a watch. It's the most complicated Rolex watch that is made. I do sell Milgausses, don't get me wrong. They go in and out. Myself surprised I haven't had one on the show. But again, I'm not the guy that tries to put a lot of Rolex on the show, because if I do a Rolex video every single week, I'm going to get a gazillion views. But that's not what this channel is about. It's not about getting views. It's about putting out quality content. If you like the Milgauss, I would suggest you get out there and get it. I have the very first green Milgauss when it first came out, and don't quote me when it came out in terms of the year. I have one still brand spanking new and all its original packaging sitting in a safe. It's something I'm going to probably end up pulling out about 10 years from now. Because remember, from Rolex, it doesn't matter how popular or not popular the model is. It's usually the first ones and the last ones that tend to be the collectibles one. Much like with last Zenith Daytonas or first Zenith Daytonas, those are the ones that fetch the most amount of money. Because those are technically the ones that made the least of, right? Because in a year, they can only make so much. And if they started production, let's say, halfway through the year, which is usually what happens, in that very first year of any model, they end up making the least, same as with the last year production models. And another thing to mention about the Milgauss is, again, remember, this is a remake. I've seen a bunch, but I haven't owned the original Rolex Milgausses yet. And hopefully sometime down the line, or in this crazy market, I may be able to pick one up fairly inexpensive in comparison to what they were trading at in the high market. So I hope that answers your question somewhat. Since Derek is new to the channel, he answered more than one question via a couple of emails. I'll take another one from him. Question, I have my eye on this AP 26120 SD blue dial. It looks like we're talking about the blue time Royal Oak. I don't know if I would consider this watch vintage quite yet. However, I've been looking around, but I see it in a foreign country. I'm not jumping on a plane soon, so what is the process I need to go through to have someone source it for me, i.e. pick the right person, work through a dealer, and how do I know the watch is authentic? Also, thoughts on Cellini Moonphase long term. I talked about the Cellinis in general. In long term, none of them hold their value. So get out there, buy pre-owned at a discount. I guess the question is, where did you find this watch? I'm assuming you found it somewhere online. And I've talked about, and I'll have Ian linked it below, and how to be safe in buying watches. I spoke to this numerous times. But if this is a dealer that's out there, he should have the capacity to either take a credit card or use a platform like Chrono24 where you are protected, things like PayPal and so on and so forth. And know who you're buying from. I actually have a dual time in stock. I don't think it's a blue dial, it's a black dial. But find a guy like me, that's stateside, somebody that you can call, give you American Express, or at least you trust enough to know that this is not a fly-by operation. And so I always said the same thing, better safe than sorry. If something is shady over there, just stay away from it. Don't go chasing something, and if it's too good to be true, it usually is. Find a safe platform to buy from, a safe dealer to buy from, and go from there. Better off passing than taking a risk. It's not a cheap item you're buying. Got a question from Jay. Hey Roman, love the videos, always very insightful and fun, and a great alternative to reading a book before bedtime. Thank you. I'm glad to hear I put you to sleep. No. Thank you. 2 questions. What is your opinion of buying high-value watches at auctions like Phillips? How reliable are the condition reports? As much as I would love to say that big auction houses like Phillips and Christie's and Sotheby's and Antiquarian and things of that nature are super duper reliable, they're not. There's still some shady shit that goes on behind the scene. And the reason I know this is because I deal with a lot of these auction houses. Condition specifically report, yes. They will tell you condition of the watch as you see fit. Have specifically vintage watches gone through with replacement dials that wasn't mentioned? Perhaps even refinished dials on some of these auctions houses. And again, I'm not talking about Phillips in particular, just in general. Yes, at the end of the day, there's still human beings that work at these auctions houses that are experts in certain things. And when it comes to vintage, a lot of stuff can get by an expert and get by them fairly easily, so they can actually put a watch through, let's say with a replacement dial or maybe a very well refinished dial where they couldn't simply tell, and they would pass the watch off as all original and untouched, right? I'll put it in a percentage. They're probably reliable up to 90%, and stuff does slip through the cracks. Plus, you have to understand, a lot of these sellers, like big-time sellers that sell the big-time stuff, and a lot of these auction houses, they have a relationship with these auction houses. So they will wheel and deal and push certain things through at a certain price just to make the client happy. And by client, I mean the vendor that's actually selling the watch, because both buyers and sellers are clients of these big auction houses. So, you know, if something needs to be omitted or not mentioned, sometimes that happens as well. So you have to be extremely careful, especially when you're getting out there and getting into the vintage stuff. My advice is find a friend who's extremely knowledgeable in vintage stuff and unbiased that can help you making a purchase, because a lot of these auction houses have preview days where you can actually physically go and see the stuff. 2, whatever happened to AP Royal Oak and Platinum? 26332PT, I'm assuming you're talking about the Platinum Royal Oak with the green dial. Well, I cannot recall seeing online for sale anywhere where they limited to just 20 pieces. Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them on Chrono 24 at a ridiculous price. Lowest is 150, highest is 180,000. There's a reason why they're so sought after and quickly got sold out, and that is the fact that they have a green dial. And green dial is extremely popular in the Middle East. A lot of the folks that collect watches in the Middle East could care less to pay 180 or 150,000 for a watch if this is something that they really, really want. So majority of them are actually sitting either on collector hands or with dealers like myself in the Middle East. So good luck finding one without paying an arm and a leg. This is really what it comes down to with this particular watch. Hope that answers your question. I'm going to take one more. This one comes from Matt White. Roman, I love your videos and I have been binge watching them back lately. One thing I never see you talk about is these top-end G-Shock releases with a price tag of $1,700 US. Is there any value in a digital watch like that? In my opinion, I could pick up a nearly identical G-Shock that is digital, like the new GMW line for $100. Just curious why a brand like Casio would get away from what they do best, and that's sell a popular and affordable for everyone watch. I had recently touched on other brands selling to markets beyond their means. Is Casio doing the same with this line of watches? Well, the answer is actually really simple. Where you are wrong in your question, why would Casio get away from what they do best? They're not getting away from what they do best. They still sell a ton of cheaper watches or lower end watches. Every company out there, and I hate to call them lower end companies, let's say lower priced watches, right? Casio or Swatch for that matter. Once in a blue moon, they'll come out with a high end watch. Now, what's the mentality behind that? There's guys out there that doesn't matter how much money they have, they wouldn't be caught dead wearing the lowest end Rolex like a Datejust, because to them, it screams gaudy, it screams money, and they're just conservative. However, this could be an individual whose net worth can afford them to buy 100 Rolexes and not even feel it, right? But these guys tend to wear other things, Timex, Casio, something that's just a tool to tell time. Casio is a very popular tool alongside with like Timex or Citizen or something of that nature, right? Again, lower priced watches. I don't want to call them lower end. I love Casio, they make some really cool stuff, right? So what that means is that Guys that wear Casios or Timexes or Swatch watches doesn't necessarily mean that they can't afford a better watch. This is what they choose to do. So lots of guys out there that can afford a Ferrari, but they'll still drive a Chevy pickup because this is what they choose to drive. This is what they like, right? But at the same token, those same guys that are driving a Chevy pickup and wearing a Casio can be spending $15,000 on a bottle of wine, to each his own, right? By putting out an expensive watch or a high-end line from Casio, you can now tend to those that can afford a higher watch without actually flashing. I'm sure they're still successful with putting out those watches. As you can imagine, they don't put out as nearly many of those as they did of the $100 watches or $200 watches, right? And at the end of the day, it sort of allows someone that can afford a much more expensive item to spend more money on the line while at the same time keep the same values in terms of being conservative, etc. Swatch Watch did this. They made a platinum Swatch watch. That watch was like $12,000, I think it was. I don't remember. It was some ridiculous price. Guess what? They sold them. I sold a few of those watches. They came in a big silver case. I mean, it was like the whole big to-do with this watch. And they still sold, and they sold well. Right? That's all it is. It's just a way to allow somebody who wants to stay conservative but at the same token spend a little bit more money on perhaps a brand that they love. There's a lot of guys out there that love Casio watches. You know what I mean? I bet you a lot of them got excited when they saw this expensive timepiece, right? If you're someone that likes Casio and you like that $1,700 watch and you can afford it, go out there and buy it. Who cares? You know what I mean? Again, buy what you like. So hope that answers your question, and that's going to be it for me for today, guys. I appreciate you tuning in as always. And remember, simple things: hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and most importantly, hit the share button and share my videos with those that you think may enjoy my content, because this is what helps my channel grow. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.